and welcome to this episode of ArtsAbly in Conversation. My name is Diane Collin. I am a woman with short hair, blue eyes, and glasses, and today I wear a black top. Behind me is a dance studio with gray walls, tall mirrors, and spotlights. This series presents artists, academics, and project leaders who dedicate their time and energy to a better accessibility for people with disabilities in the arts. You can find more of these conversations on our website, artsably.com, which is spelled ArtsAbly.com. Today, ArtsAbly is in conversation with Brianna Matzke, a pianist, musical director, and music educator based in Cincinnati, Ohio. You can find the resources mentioned by Brianna Matzke during this episode on ArtsAbly's website in the blog section.
I'm fine. My hands just shake a little bit sometimes. It's nothing. These are my hands. There's nothing wrong. It's genetic. There's nothing wrong. No, I didn't have too much to drink last night. My hands just shake a little bit. No, I'm not nervous. I have essential tremor. I don't notice it at all when I'm playing on the keys. When I play the piano is when I'm my most authentic self. My shaking hands are at the heart of that. I'm not broken.
Welcome to this new episode of ArtsAbly in Conversation. Today I am with Brianna Matzke, who is a pianist, a musical director, and a music educator based in Cincinnati, Ohio. Hi, Brianna.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for dedicating a bit of your time in your busy schedule that I know is very busy to have this conversation. And I always start these episodes by asking about you, about our guest today. And so would you mind providing a bit of background? Where did your journey start as a musician? And also, if you could give a visual description. Thank you.
Sure. Uh, so first of all, I'm sitting in my office today, although I have the background blurred we're on Zoom. The background's blurred. Um, I'm a short white woman sitting in a chair with a black sweater on, blue t-shirt under the black sweater. I have curled brown hair, blue eyes, and silver earrings on. Um, and your introduction to me was a great introduction to what I do. I wear many hats, but I started my musical life as a pianist. I grew up in small town Minnesota, and as I was growing up, I was always this happens in a small town. I was always the quote unquote piano girl in town. And so when it came time to choose what to do for going to the university, I decided to get a music degree. Went to the University of Kansas, uh, which is still in the Midwest, but a very different part of the Midwest from Minnesota, for my undergraduate, and got a degree in piano performance, and then moved to Cincinnati, where I started grad school, master's and doctorate here. And didn't think I would when I moved here, I didn't think I would stay in Cincinnati, but once I got here, got to know the city, I loved it here. And so once I finished my graduate work, I did everything I could to stay, and was very lucky to find a position at a small liberal arts school nearby to Cincinnati. And so that's where I teach now.
But you don't only teach, right? You do so many different things.
That's Yeah. So my specialization as a performer is what has led me to all the other work that I do now. So all through grad school, one of the things that I did a lot was collaborate with the composers who are also going to school with me. They'd have a new piece that they'd written for piano and they needed someone to perform it, to record it, whatever it might be. And I didn't think that as I was doing that in grad school, I didn't think that that would ever be professionally viable for me. But then as it came time to finish grad school, some of my mentors sort of encouraged me to develop some projects that involved me commissioning new music from composers and performing that, and developing those projects in a way that was sort of conscious of not only being innovative in an art sense, but also innovative in how it involved the community. And that work of commissioning composers gradually expanded to commissioning other artists as well, and working with other community organizations. And so just by necessity of being able to make those projects happen, I learned how to fundraise and how to be an arts administrator. And over time, I've been asked to step in to leadership roles in some various arts organizations. So now I'm lucky enough to serve as the executive director for something called Concert Nova, which is a chamber music concert series and collective here in Cincinnati. I also am the president and CEO of the International Foundation for Contemporary Music. And our flagship program is something called the Cortona Sessions for New Music, which is a 2-week summer music educational program for emerging professional performers and composers working in contemporary classical music. That happens in the Netherlands every year. And this project of commissioning artists and composers is called the Response Project. And so I'm the artistic director of that project. So yes, I do stay very busy.
Concert Nova, it has been around for many years, right? If I read correctly on their website.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. This is our 18th season, which is amazing. Founded 18 years ago. And the thing that's so interesting to me about Concert Nova is it was started with the idea to take classical music out of the concert hall and to put it in unexpected contexts and to do interdisciplinary collaboration. Um, and at the time when that happened 18 years ago, they were one of the only organizations that I know of anywhere doing that kind of work. And now, that's become a much more common thing. But when Concert Nova started, they were on the forefront of that idea.
So where are you going? What's the typical example of a concerts by Concert Nova outside the outside the concert hall?
When people ask me that question, I say I don't have an answer for you because every Concert Nova event looks different. If you've been to one Concert Nova event, then you've been to one Concert Nova event. There's nothing typical about it at all. We perform in the forest. We perform at the beer brewery. We perform in the art museum, on the street corner. Whatever the idea is behind the music, however we want to bring it to the community, that's where we bring it. So everything's different all the time.
That sounds very nice.
It's really fun. It's really fun. I just had a meeting this morning about our next season, season 19. And one of the ideas for the concerts is to do a roller skating rink concert. We'll see if we
Great.
can make that happen.
What about the response project?
Yeah.
What led you to create that project?
Yeah. So I mentioned that a little bit earlier. I was finishing grad school and uh, I had done a lot of work with composers through grad school. Didn't think it was viable as a professional avenue. And then, but I knew that also what I had been studying for my doctoral degree recitals and things like that wasn't that interesting to me. When you get a degree in piano performance, you study Bach and Brahms and Beethoven and Chopin and Liszt. Great music. I love to play that music, but I didn't feel artistically authentic in performing that myself. I didn't feel fully myself. So this was 2014. And so in 2013, as I was approaching the end of my studies, I went to a music festival here in Cincinnati, put on by a person named Bryce Dessner, who's the guitarist for a rock band called The National and also a classical composer. And he, for this festival called Music Now, brought together artists and musicians from all genres. It was sort of genre went out the window for this, and he just brought together all these musicians he thought were interesting and put them on the stage together to make music together, performing their own projects, but also making new projects specifically for that festival. And maybe it sounds silly to say now, but I really didn't realize up until I saw that festival that kind of creativity was possible. Something that was alive, very relevant, very contemporary, and irrespective of genre, just existed as a creative product. And so I was really inspired by that. And that was where I began to come up with the idea for the Response Project. And it grew from there. I knew I wanted to work with other creative people to make something new together. And the model for that sort of generated out of that initial spark of an idea. And over time, it started out, the first Response project I ever did, I just emailed 5 of my friends who were composers that I had worked with before and asked them what they would like to respond to. And they ended up selecting a piece by Karlheinz Stockhausen called Microphony One. Not to get too in the weeds about it, but it's sort of experimental electroacoustic music making. And they wrote a response to that for me to perform 5 new pieces on solo piano. And at the end of that project, after I premiered it, somebody said to me, Brianna, this could be the response project. This is great. This is a great model. This could be the thing that you're known for. Um, I hadn't realized that that was what I had made, but somebody else said that to me. And so I decided to do another one. So I chose a different response point, a different set of composers, and then brought in some visual artists for the next one. And again, it went really well, was able to get some grant funding. So then I did another one and another one and another one. And more people came to me and said, I want to be part of this next response project. And so that's how it's grown over the years.
So it's been 10 years.
It has been 10 Oh, yeah. Can't believe it.
So every set of response project has its own name or its own setting or its own, yeah.
Yeah, every response project is centered around a pre-existing artwork or pre-existing idea that I choose as the response point, and all the artists involved in the project are free to create new artwork in response to that in whatever way they wish.
So is there one of these pieces? It's very hard because all of these pieces you interpreted them and you gave something from yourself in these interpretations. But if there is one of these or two of these that really marked you, what would be these pieces?
Out of all the response projects, well, you reached out to me for this because of one of the response projects, my most recent one, the Tremor project, and that's certainly what comes to mind when you ask this question, because the Tremor project is my most personal response project by far. All the other response projects were responses to, we did a response to a Bob Dylan album. We did a response to the compositions of Pauline Oliveros. But for this one, Tremor, I asked all the artists to respond to something about me. So should I tell the story of Tremor?
Oh, yes, please.
So in 2020, I was diagnosed with a neurological condition called essential tremor. This is a condition that causes parts of the body to shake, and it affects everyone who has essential tremor. It affects them differently. For me, it causes my hands to shake most often. And when I was diagnosed in 2020, I'd been visibly shaking for quite a while before that. But once I was officially diagnosed and I knew what it was, it really freaked me out. And I wasn't sure how to process it, really. I didn't know how to move forward, if I should start telling people or if I should keep it a secret. I was very afraid for my career. I was afraid of the stigma associated with having shaking hands as a professional performing classical musician. And also just the stigma of having shaking hands in general and what people assume when your hands shake. And I decided that the best way for me to move forward and process what was happening to me was to do the same thing that I always do, which is use creativity and collaboration to figure out the world. So I decided to do a response project about tremor. And the first person that I called to develop the idea for tremor, once I knew I wanted to do a response project, was Molly Joyce, who had already been a collaborator with me on 2 other response projects. Molly's a wonderful composer and creative performing artist herself, who uses disability as a creative source in her work, and uses her creativity to illustrate and illuminate and dispel misconceptions about disability. And I called her because I knew that I wanted to use this project to explore ideas of ability and disability as it relates to artistic expression. But I didn't know if if my condition qualified to enter that space, you know? Um, and uh, so I talked with her about it. I said, can I do this? Is it okay if I make a project about ability and disability? And she said, yes, please. Like, please do this. And she helped me shape it a little bit. So then with her consultation, I selected some more composers to write music for me in addition to her contribution. And I sought out a community organization to work with for visual art for the project. And I'm so lucky they said yes. The organization I worked with is called Visionaries and Voices. And it's an art studio for adults with disabilities here in Cincinnati, where they can go and be mentored and supported in their career as a visual artist. It's a wonderful place. And they helped me find 5 artists to work with there. And I also got to work with a sound artist named Brittany Big Neighbor, who lives with a stutter. And she interviewed all of the artists from Visionaries and Voices and developed these lovely audio interview portraits that have become a part of the project as well. So Tremor um, turned into, as the final product, a multimedia concert where I play the piano, we look at the visual art, we listen to the interviews with the artists, and I talk about the project a bit as a whole. And I've taken that concert on tour around the US, and it was very scary to present this at first, very vulnerable to admit what I was going through. And I have been just blown away by how people have been reacting to it and their sort of curiosity and their gratitude. It's been really wonderful.
Were you able to exchange with, um, I guess, the surroundings of these visual artists, for example? Because being part of a project with multiple artistic practices is something that they might not see every day or live every day.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to exchange with the teams who work with them, with the other artists and maybe the families, something like that?
Yeah, so the process of developing the visual art component of this was really fun. I visited the space, the studio for Visionaries and Voices multiple times, and started out just having sort of personal one-on-one conversations with the artists, talking about their experience with art and their disability and how they related to my tremor and how they felt that it would manifest in their art making to respond to the fact that I have a tremor as a musician. And those conversations were great. And then from there, the artists listened to some of the music that I've made in the past and used that as a sort of creative generation for their own visual art making. And then uh, we got to we put all of the art pieces up in an exhibition here in Cincinnati, and we invited all the artists to the opening reception for the exhibition. And so they got to come and bring their loved ones with them, and we performed some music at the exhibition and shared the audio interviews from the artists with the audience. And it was really lovely. Yeah, a lot of interaction.
The composers were there.
The composers were no, I don't think any of the composers were at that reception. The composers for this project, unlike the visual artists, the composers for this project are located all over the country, and it was difficult to get them all there for that particular event. They've been at different performances of this project. I've met all of the composers somewhere along the line, but they weren't there for that. No.
So where did you tour with this project?
I've done kind of all over different parts of Ohio. I got to go to Boston and Vermont. I've done Chicago, Minnesota, and Kansas City. And I'm so lucky that I was granted a sabbatical from my teaching at the college this last fall. And that was my project to go on tour. Um, and so those were all the performances I managed to squeeze in one semester. I'll be performing it one more time in a few weeks here at the end of we're talking on January 20th, and I'll be performing at the end of January here in Cincinnati again. Um, I don't have any other dates booked for this project, but I'd love to continue performing it. Um, it's certainly worth taking to other parts of the country and world. So we'll see what happens.
Very nice.
Mhm.
Well, you're also traveling outside the States as for the International Foundation for Contemporary Music, as you were mentioning.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so this is in Holland for the Cortona sessions,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
So how do you manage to do that in your in your academic year every year?
Well, I'm really lucky with that position, um, that I have a team of people working alongside me to make that happen. And everyone really generously gives of their time and energy to support the administration of that project. Um, I certainly would not be able to do it alone. No, it'd be impossible.
So can you tell us a bit more about that, the Cortona sessions and also the foundation itself?
Sure, I'd be happy to tell you. So the Cortona Sessions, like I said, it's the flagship project of the IFCM. It was founded in 2010. And it's called the Cortona Sessions because it used to happen every summer in Cortona, Italy. So it's a program for composers and performers who are interested in contemporary music to come together and be mentored in that professional interest. It lasts for 2 weeks. The composers write a brand new composition for performance premiere at the sessions, and the performers come with interest in collaborating with the composers on the premiere of those works. One thing that makes us stand apart is we offer a conducting track of study as well. So young conductors can come and be mentored, and there's very specific skills that come along with conducting contemporary chamber music that we mentor them in. And we also offer a track of study for preformed chamber music ensembles who want to specialize in contemporary music to come and study with us and be mentored and coached, not only in their music making, but also on the more business side of what it takes to run a chamber music ensemble. And one thing that I really we pride ourselves on at the Cortona Sessions is the our focus is on artistic excellence, absolutely, but we never sacrifice the feeling of safety, welcoming, warmth, friendship, compassion, for the sake of some sort of artistic ideal. Our focus is on community. Um, my first interaction with the Cortona Sessions back in 2018, I came as their resident piano fellow, so I was more on the student side of things. And I was so surprised to find that, the faculty at the Cortona Sessions, they didn't hold themselves separate from the students. It wasn't like this hierarchical feeling where it's faculty up here and students down here and we must pay homage or something like that. It was not like that at all. It was a feeling of collaboration and mutual support, mutual interest. We're all learning from each other. And the only thing that sets the faculty apart is just that they've been doing this longer, you know? And I found that so helpful and welcoming and supportive. And so I have continued to try to operate in that spirit, and I'm really proud that we continue to offer that spirit of community.
So how many applicants do you take each year?
Our program has room for about 45 people.
Hmm.
So that breaks down to 3 or 4 preformed ensembles, about 12 composers, uh, two, three conductors, and then the rest are performers. And the instrumentation that we focus on is the what's known as the Pierrot ensemble. Um, so that would be flute, saxophone, clarinet, violin, cello, percussion, piano, and voice.
Hmm,
Yeah,
very
so
impressive.
thank you. It's a really interesting challenge to run a program like that because I'm talking about issues of welcoming and trying to create a feeling of safety for as many identities as we possibly can. Um, and it's difficult to, nobody can ever do that perfectly. We can always try to do better. But from a financial standpoint, making a summer program of study like that financially accessible to people is a continual challenge. Um, there are not many institutions out there who are interested in supporting a program like that financially. It just is not the priority of a lot of foundations or philanthropists for whatever reason. But it does cost money to run a program like that, and so that's been an ongoing challenge is the financial side of the accessibility.
Well, yeah, and especially right now, you have someone who's coming to the game who is not really fond of arts. Your new president, who is really today as we are speaking. And sometimes it's a
I
bit
was
frightening.
so I was so grateful that you we decided to schedule this interview on Inauguration Day. It's for me, it's a welcome distraction. So I'm not focusing on those ceremonies right now.
Very good.
Mhm.
Well, I have also a question about you as a pedagogue, as a music educator.
Mm,
Um, so I will. You mentioned that you have this tremor,
yeah.
and as an educator, how did it change your own education practices or your conversations with the students? Maybe did it change something?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I've never thought about that before. Um, Here's what I can tell you did change for me. Um, and I'll have to think about the educator part of it. But when I started the Tremor Project, I admittedly had not directly interacted with ideas of disability or research around disability, um, uh, really at all, not very much at all. Um, and I had a, uh, a wrong belief in my head. Uh, Before I started the Tremor Project, and this was wrong, but I really did think that disability, people who lived with disability, it was like a firmly defined category. And there are people with disability and people without disability. And it was separate, separate categories that could be defined. Um, and as part of that separateness, I think I thought that there was some sort of outreach that needed to happen to connect those two separated categories. But what I discovered is actually disability is a part of everybody's life. And there's no separation at all. It might be it's a spectrum of a sort. Um, but I realized how closely we all live with it every day. And it's just these unjust, poorly designed social structures and things that separate us from each other. Um, and so I guess as an educator, that realization, um, perhaps over time, it's changed how I approach my students. Just to realize you never know. Um, what somebody is going through internally in other parts of their lives, whatever it might be. You don't know when there's neurodivergence or chronic pain or somebody else in their family who's dealing with things and they're a caregiver. I think I just operate with a different baseline of compassion and understanding as a result of doing this project. It's too bad that I didn't realize that before, but I'm glad it brought me to that realization, and I hope that this project is bringing other people to that realization as well.
And also, I think that with the conversations you must have had with Molly Joyce, who's really working on the idea of, duality, of, how do we conceive disability, the part that is working vs the part that is not, the part that we say vs the part that we don't say. And she does such an amazing job in trying to conceptualize that into her music compositions. So, as a musician, then more than as a pedagogue or the music educator, these conversations must have been the triggering point of you trying to change your own conception of disability, right?
Yeah, yeah. One of the questions, once I started telling people that I have essential tremor, one of the questions that immediately comes up as the next question that they have when I say, well, I have essential tremor. People always say, oh my gosh, well, how do you play piano then?
Yeah.
How? That must be really difficult, right? And the my answer is actually it's not that difficult because I live with it every day. I'm never not shaking. Um, and so if the tremor is affecting my artistry, I don't really know that it is because I'm just not aware of it because I don't know what it means to play piano without shaking hands. Um, and it's possible that if I woke up tomorrow without the tremor, I would have to relearn my artistry and develop a new approach to the piano. And that would be actually more difficult than just living with the tremor. And one of the composers for this project is this wonderful woman named Adalia Faishalina, who's blind from birth composer. And she, when we were chatting about the project, she said to me, well, Brianna, it's not like when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I think is, oh no, I'm blind. It's most of the time these conditions we don't think about it. Like the difficulty comes in when the world is not able to welcome us, even though we're fully comfortable in our own bodies. And that's another point that I'm trying to illuminate with the project. When it comes to performing and working in classical music specifically, there's an obsession with virtuosity in classical music. And I hate the way that it's traditionally defined as physical mastery, playing faster and louder than anybody else. I think that's boring, and I think it's a harmful way to look at mastery. It separates us from humanity, I think, and I'm much more interested in a virtuosity of expression and authenticity and vulnerability and heart-to-heart connection through the music. So anyway, these are all things, I'm rambling now, but those are all things that I think about with this project, definitely.
Well, I have a question that is kind of related. In the way we conceive disability in our social life today, that is, as you said, people discover that it's not really the conception that they had for a long time because in society we are taught that this is the way. And so there are organizations with multiple artists who work in the field of disability and music. And we frequently speak when we meet. I'm one of them. I'm a wheelchair user, I'm a singer. And some people say, okay, so how do you sing if you're not standing? Yeah, things like that, which is what? Oh, okay, I just sing, right? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but it triggered conversations about the way accessibility and disability is seen in the arts itself. And so I love this question because everybody has a different answer to this question. What does accessibility or working in a world where you have touched disability culture, what does it mean to you? Hard
Uh,
question, I know.
it's a big question.
Yes.
It's how to put it into words. The it's more the more we can welcome and gosh, even the word welcoming bothers me sometimes because there's a connotation of like otherness in the word welcome. Like you were out here and now we brought you in here. Welcome. I don't mean that. I just mean that uh, beautiful things to me. Uh, art is art to me is about accessing beauty, but beauty to me is not something that's perfect. It's not something that um, is virtuosic. The access this effort of accessibility and welcoming and um, is it makes everything more beautiful. Um, the the artistic possibilities when all voices are included are there's it's just artistically more interesting. More the I'm not being very like good with my words about this, but um we're it makes everything better. I the Molly's work is actually such a great example of this. She taught me about how um when you are creating an artistic product and you include accessibility measures in the artistic product, it enhances the artistry of that product. It's not a distraction from it. It's part of the artistic interest of it. Um, Even just something as simple as the programs that I printed for my tremor program have Braille on them, and uh, it's beautiful. Braille is beautiful. What a it's a beautiful thing to touch and experience. It's a beautiful thing if you can see it. It's a beautiful thing to see that texture added to the paper, and so it's only enhancing what we're doing. It's not an accessory, um, and so yeah, I don't have like a succinct way to say what I think about this, but man, does it make things more beautiful. It can only be better.
I agree. And there are many notions. So, for example, there is this concept of universal design, which I really like. Some people are struggling a bit with this concept of universal design. But if you think of a product or a building or something that you use every day, and you don't think about making it accessible, you think about making it usable by everybody. Whatever you are, whatever, if you're a child or if you're an adult or if you're big or if you're tall or if you have, I don't know, four fingers, it doesn't matter. Everybody should be able to use this entrance or this building or this product the same way, or at least an equivalent way, not exactly the same way. And I like that in arts too. There are some foundations or organizations right now working on um, inclusive concerts where or adaptive concerts where you have as many possible elements in the room that makes you feel good attending a concert, whatever where you're coming from, or what you identify yourself with, whatever. You come here and you feel good and you have fun and you enjoy the music. And I love that concept, really.
Yeah, yes, this is okay. You're jogging my brain a little bit with this thought because um this is again, this is a lesson I learned through this project and something I feel passionately about now. Is everybody you never know who has something to gain from creating a universally designed experience. You know, you can't it's if you go just to the idea of an artistic product, you create an artistic product, you cannot control how somebody receives that product, right? You cannot control how they're going to connect to it. And I think that's also true for, you know, in my case, I do a ton of concert production. You cannot control how someone's going to respond to that concert production. And so, you know, sometimes an accessibility measure that's designed to reach a specific audience, it's valuable for other people for all kinds of reasons. Um, and you just never know how that's going to strike somebody and open them up to something. So I think it's really important. Yeah, the universal design of concert experiences, absolutely.
Well, thank you. I know it's always a tricky question, but in a way, it's people just have their own experience of it. So I'm very interested
Yeah,
in learning about that.
yeah,
Well, I have a last question for this interview, and it's about people who might have motivated you or have brought something to your life. Sometimes I say inspire you, and see, even if it's not always the inspiration like we everybody has a different notion of inspiration too. But if you had people to think of who brought you something in your career and launched you in a way where you are today, who would it be and why?
yeah. Uh, the person that immediately comes to mind always is my first piano teacher. Um, uh, I started lessons with her when I was like 7 years old and continued until I was 16. And um, she, uh, you know, growing up in small town Minnesota, uh, for better for worse, I felt a little bit alone in who I was as an artist in that surrounding. They're just, it's just by nature of a small population. I didn't feel that there were a lot of people who felt the way about music and art and beauty the way I did. But she was my sort of window, um, not only my window to the sort of outside artistic world and what was possible, but also she was my window into myself and what I was capable of. Um, she was the one more than anybody else in my life who said, "You can do this. You have something to offer. The world needs what you have to say." Um, and it took me a long time to believe her, but man, to have that consistent voice in my life for, you know, 10 years was everything. And I wanted when I was a little girl, I wanted so much to just be exactly like her. Down to, you know, wearing the same perfume and everything. And I still in many ways feel like that about her, that the way that she lovingly held a standard up for me and kept consistently telling me what was possible for me in my life was really important.
What's her name?
Her name's Georgia Hanson. She had cancer and passed away a few years ago. It was really sad, but I remember her so fondly. I'm lucky to still be in close touch with her whole family, and I'm really grateful to know all of them.
It's important. I think teachers in our lives are so important. They form us and they make us what we are later in life. And we cannot value enough the position of a good teacher. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. The, you know, I do a ton of teaching, and uh the thing that I've been thinking about lately in my role as a teacher is how the voices of my teachers are still in my head, you know, 20, 30 years later, like they're still there. And so when I'm interacting with my students, I try to interact with them with that idea in mind that, you know, it's easy to get frustrated as a teacher and feel like, oh, they're not getting it. But maybe they'll get it in 25 years and
Mhm.
still a gift that you've given them, you know. I have to say, when it comes to being a teacher, that was how my original conception of my adult self was as a teacher when I was little. That was kind of how I saw myself, was as a teacher, a piano teacher specifically. And even now, in all of the work that I do, I think I'm still very much deeply fulfilled by my work as a piano teacher. You know, the privilege of getting to sit across from somebody week after week after week for 45 minutes dedicated time for years in their life. You get to watch them grow from a child into an adult person. You get to watch them discover themselves, and you get to see them use music to form their identity and see where it falls into their identity. They get to use music to express their place in the world. That is such a cool, wonderful, privileged position to have. I love that part of my job. Man, is it wonderful. It's very inspiring.
Yes, I feel the same. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. So yeah, and then leave a trace in these children or adults um, that will make them think, oh yeah, that was a great time. I learned a lot. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this conversation and have a good concert at the end of January with the last date of your project. And I hope I can see it one day
Oh, I
live.
hope so too. Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, well, have a wonderful day and yeah, have a great time teaching and doing everything musical that you're doing.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.